Just look at this structure. Arsenal create numerical superiority in midfield, outnumbering Inter Milan 5 versus 4 in the central zone. This overload is a key reason Arsenal were able to progress the ball smoothly from their defensive third into the final third, bypassing pressure with ease. Mikel Arteta extended his unbeaten run in the Champions League with a 3-1 victory over Inter Milan at the Stadio Giuseppe Meazza. Now let's break down the tactical story of the match. Arteta set Arsenal up in a 4-3-3, focused on central control, positional dominance, and tempo management. In response, Cristian Chivu lined Inter Milan up in a 3-5-2, aiming to stay compact in midfield and attack Arsenal in transition, using speed and precision on the counter. The contrast was clear. Arsenal sought control, Inter looked to react, and that difference defined the game. When Inter Milan had sustained possession, their build-up followed the principles of a possession-oriented structure, but with deliberate asymmetries built in. The first phase was constructed through a back three of Bastoni, Acerbi, and Akanji, providing numerical stability against Arsenal's front line and allowing Inter to circulate the ball laterally to draw the press. On the outside, Luis Enrique and Federico Di Marco functioned as hybrid wingbacks. In early build-up, they held advanced wide positions to stretch Arsenal's defensive block horizontally, but as pressure increased, they dropped alongside the back three, forming a temporary back five to secure rest defense and create extra passing lanes during circulation. In central zones, Zielinski, Barella, and Sucic operated on different vertical lines rather than remaining flat. One midfielder, often Zielinski, dropped between or alongside the center backs to create a 3+1 build-up structure, while Barella and Sucic positioned themselves slightly higher to offer third-man options and facilitate progression through the half spaces. Cristian Chivu's key strategic principle was territorial compression. By keeping the majority of his players inside Inter's own half, he intentionally invited Arsenal's high press, understanding that Arsenal would need to commit extra numbers to maintain pressure. This, in turn, stretched Arsenal vertically and created exploitable space behind the midfield line once the first press was beaten. The attacking reference point within this structure was Marcus Thuram, who was deliberately excluded from the dropping movements. Thuram stayed high, positioned on the blind side and shoulder of the last defender, acting as a fixed outlet for direct progression. Simultaneously, Lautaro Martinez repeatedly dropped into midfield, functioning as a false nine. His movement frequently attracted William Saliba out of the defensive line, creating a temporary defensive disconnection inside Arsenal's back four. This movement pattern consistently isolated Thuram against Mosquera, often in large spaces around the halfway line or inside Arsenal's defensive half. When the ball was played into Thuram, the objective was not immediate penetration, but ball security. Thuram used his physical profile to pin the defender, protect the ball, and delay, allowing wide runners and advancing midfielders to arrive at speed. From there, Inter attacked Arsenal's back line through wide overloads, diagonal runs, and second-phase attacks, a sequence that directly led to Inter's only goal. Defensively, Arsenal responded by adjusting their out-of-possession scheme into an aggressive man-oriented press. Rather than protecting zones, Arsenal's midfield and wide players began tracking individual assignments, especially targeting Inter's deep midfield rotations. The pressing triggers were clear: a backward pass into the back three, a poor body orientation from the center backs, or a delayed reception from the dropping midfielders. The objective was twofold: win the ball in Inter's defensive third, and, just as importantly, cut off the direct access to Thuram. By preventing Inter from establishing clean connections into their high reference point, Arsenal disrupted Inter's transition mechanism and forced them into sterile possession deeper in their own half. When Arsenal were in possession, they built up with a back two of Saliba and Mosquera, while Timber and Lewis Skelly inverted into midfield. This adjustment created a stable first phase and immediately shifted Arsenal into a 2-3 build-up structure, giving them numerical security against Inter's front two and preventing any aggressive high press. The inward movement of Timber and Lewis Skelly had a direct knock-on effect higher up the pitch. With both fullbacks occupying central zones, Eze and Merino were able to move into the inside channels, operating as advanced attacking midfielders rather than traditional wide players. Their positioning stretched Inter's backline horizontally and vertically, making it extremely difficult for Inter to track Arsenal's wingers without leaving space centrally for late runs. This structure also ensured that Inter could not commit numbers forward to press in Arsenal's half. Trossard and Saka held high and wide positions, pinning DiMarco and Luis Enrique deep, while Gabriel Jesus occupied both center-backs, preventing them from stepping out. As a result, Inter's defensive line was constantly fixed, unable to compress the pitch or support the midfield. Inter were comfortable conceding possession, and instead dropped into a 5-3-2 mid to low block. Rather than pressing aggressively, they focused on blocking central passing lanes and protecting the box, with the back five maintaining a spare defender at all times. However, this conservative approach came at a cost, as it left them outnumbered in midfield, allowing Arsenal to circulate the ball freely and dictate the tempo. With clear numerical superiority in central areas, progression was rarely an issue for Arteta's side. From the opening minutes, Arsenal showed a clear understanding of how to break Inter's defensive structure. They repeatedly used the wings to create overloads and passing triangles, particularly on the right, where Saka, Timber, and Saliba combined to manipulate Inter's block and access advanced areas. As these wide combinations developed, Arsenal flooded the penalty area. Jesus, Eze, Merino, and Trossard consistently attacked the box, forcing Inter's back five to retreat deeper. On the opposite flank, Trossard, Luis Skelly, and Mosquera formed similar rotational patterns, giving Arsenal multiple routes to goal through crosses, cutbacks, or recycled possession. A crucial detail in Arsenal's attacking structure was their occupation of the edge of the box. Two players were regularly positioned outside the penalty area, often untracked due to Inter's deep defensive line and ball-focused defending. This allowed Arsenal to either shoot from distance or play quick layoffs into runners attacking the 6-yard box. One such sequence directly led to Arsenal's opening goal. Overall, Arsenal's dominance stemmed from positional discipline, intelligent rotations, and sustained midfield superiority, which consistently destabilized Inter's defensive block and allowed Arteta's side to control both territory and tempo throughout the match. Ultimately, this match was decided by structural control rather than moments. Arsenal's ability to build with a back two, invert both fullbacks, and consistently create numerical superiority in midfield meant they dictated where the game was played and at what tempo. Inter's 5-3-2 block was effective in protecting the box, but it also surrendered control of central zones, allowing Arsenal to progress the ball without resistance. By pinning Inter's wingbacks, occupying the half spaces with Eze and Merino, and flooding the box with coordinated runs, Arsenal forced Inter into a permanently reactive state. Inter's plan to defend deep and counter through isolated transitions lacked sustainability, especially once Arsenal adjusted their pressing to cut off direct outlets. In the end, Arsenal didn't just break Inter down through individual quality. They systematically dismantled their defensive structure through superior spacing, intelligent rotations, and control of key areas. This was a tactical victory defined by dominance of the center, control of transitions, and relentless positional pressure.